Hello. I can get that. I'm going to close my door really quick because I have a puppy here with me who just wants to tell me about everybody who is coming to see me. So let me just close my door. Okay. That way, hopefully, we'll get a little less interruptions from puppy. All right. I'm going to open my chat. All right, welcome everyone. It's so exciting to see so many of you. So I am recording this one. That's not something that I usually do, but I had so many requests. I know it's hard for everybody to have the same schedule. So I'm going to record it. I hope. We'll see if that works. So if you're not comfortable being on screen, that is totally fine to have your video off. You're also totally welcome to pop on and wave at me or have a chat with me. This is pretty informal, so it's like I'm going to talk about the different samples and talk about my yarns a little bit, but if you have questions, like, don't feel like you're interrupting me. That's kind of why I'm here. That's kind of my main purpose in doing this, so that I can answer those kinds of questions. Okay, so the other thing you can do if you're a little shy and don't want to interrupt or, stop me while I'm going, you can open up the chat. There should be a button at the bottom, usually, of your screen that has either it'll say chat or it'll say more with the three dots. Click on that and it'll bring up an option for a chat. And when you click on that, it'll open a little chat box on the side. And then that way, if you have questions, you can always just type them in there. And then I'll just kind of keep my eye on that as I go. And I'm going to, whenever I talk about a pattern or a sample, I'll probably put I'll put the Ravelry link in the chat. So if that's something that you're interested in being able to kind of grab that link, that's where you're going to find it. Okay, so welcome everyone. I'm so excited that you're here. Let's see. I am going to just start diving in, but I guess I'll start by, most of you know me, and either we've chatted before or you've come to one of these before, or you're following our newsletter. So you might know a little bit about me already. But I'll just give you kind of a little backstory. So when I started knitting when I was like fresh out of college, and I was working for an attorney in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and his bookkeeper, she did bookkeeping for several of the local businesses, but she also owned the local yarn store. And so when I heard that, I told her that had always been something I was interested in learning. And so, like any good LYS owner, she said, "Come on in, I'll teach you." So I went and just fell in love with it. And then very soon after that, we moved into this tiny town in New Mexico that did not have a local yarn store. I think we had a Walmart, and that was it. We might have had a Michael's too. I can't remember. But anyway, so I had just discovered this love of hand-dyed yarn and kind of some luxury bases and things that I really enjoyed knitting with, and didn't have a local source for that. So that's when I started tinkering with dyeing, and just kind of took off from there. And now that all my kids, I've got 4 kids and they're all in school full time. And so it's just kind of become something where I thought, I'll give myself a year and see if this makes sense, or maybe I'll go and find another, like a real job. And so this has since turned into my real job, which is just really great. I love it. I kind of am an introverted person. I consider myself an introverted person, but one thing that I love about yarn is it's something that I just love and am passionate about. And so oddly, I find it easy to chat with people when we're talking about yarn. So like I said, like I'm here I'll show you some patterns and give you some ideas, but also just to chat about yarn. And if you have questions about any of the colorways, we'll do that. Oh, Jody, you're right. I did not put minis up. I will as soon as we're done with this Zoom. In fact, I'm gonna get a notepad to write things down on, because I know. So as you might have heard, I was sick yesterday. I just had a terrible migraine. And so it just pushed all my schedule off. Okay, don't worry, Jody. It just pushed my schedule off. So I'm a little bit kind of playing catch up today. So there are things that I'm meant to have as part of this launch that aren't up yet, and the minis is one. So let me get my trusty pad of paper. And I'm just going to keep some notes of things that I need to get done right after we get off of this Zoom. So minis is a big one for sure. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So thank you, Serena. I know, it's funny. I found several things that have helped a ton. If you're a migraine sufferer, I find that getting a monthly massage really, really helps. And I get to pretend like it's physical therapy. But I do, and that helps a ton. But my biggest one is like sleep. And if I'm just not getting good enough sleep, and then if I add sugar on top of that, it's the worst. Anyway, so mostly I can manage them, but every once in a while they catch me unawares. Okay. Yeah, Jody, that's perfect. I will get minis up literally as soon as we get off of the call, and then you can add them then. I'm not super like, because it's a pre-order, I don't want you guys to stress. Like, I'm not super worried about having a sellout situation, at least in the first couple of days. So you should be okay to get it. And worst case scenario, if I close the pre-order because it's just getting overwhelming and you were on this call, just tell me and say, hey, Kate, I was on that call. You said I could get in, and I'll make sure we make room. Okay. All right. You guys are so nice. All right. So the first thing I want to remind you of is the discount code. If you use the word rocks in your discount code, you'll get 15% off your whole order. I am going to be going in. There's another thing on my to-do list is to go in and I had a lot of minis and things that are on sale right now. But if you guys get in there before I get a chance to clean that up and change those back to full price, feel free to combine that with your discount code. That's just what you get for being a go-getter and being here. All right. Oh, Cynthia, I know. It's really frustrating when it takes you out of commission when you get one of those. So, all right. So let's see. Okay. So I told you about the discount code. Let me just get started talking about patterns. And I might interrupt myself, and you're welcome to interrupt me. So I'll tell you first about the one that I'm wearing, because it's one that I'm very excited about. In fact, so what's fun is the one that I'm wearing right now. I'll show you. It's this cute stripy drop shoulder sweater, and it's actually the same pattern as this blue one right here. All I did was switch up what yarns I used and then did this one in a shorter sleeve. So I'll tell you about that one first, because I'm a little obsessed with it. I knit this one, and it's in a DK weight. So I knit it on size 7 needles. It took me not very long to do, because I think there's something about stripes that just you just want to get to that next one. And then I immediately cast on this other one because I had so much fun making it. So let me grab I'm going to just get the, pull up a document I have that has all of my links on it, so I can put that in the chat. Okay, so this one is called the Karamelli sweater. Get that link in. Whoops. Okay, so you should see that pop up in the chat box. So that has the link to the pattern on Ravelry. So I'll tell you a little bit about this sample, and then I'll tell you about the blue one. So this one I did a size 2, which is like a 48-inch bust. And I knit it in our Posh DK base. The colorways I used, kind of the main colorway here, that's that strawberry quartz. And I used 2 skeins of strawberry quartz. And then the stripes are amethyst, that's that purple, manganese calcite, that's that kind of cream with just a hint of pink in it, and Whitby jet. And I should have done a disclaimer at the beginning. If you're a geologist, Feel free to correct my pronunciation. I love the look of rocks and stones and crystals, and I think they're pretty, but that's about the extent of my knowledge. I just think they're fun. So if you have some expertise there, feel free to correct me because I'm probably going to drive you crazy if I'm saying it wrong this whole time. Okay, so this is the first one I made with the stripes, and I'm going to hold up the blue one to kind of talk through the pattern because I want to show you how it's done. All right, so this one I did in the same size, same everything, but I knit it with a strand of Posh Skinny in the Hemi-More Fit colorway. In fact, let me see if I have that one with you because I want to see how it looks. Show you how it looks because this drop we are doing, the bases that are going to be available are Posh Skinny, Posh Sock, Posh DK. They all start with Posh because they all have the same blend. It's 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon. It's by far our best-selling blend, and I think it's just because it is just buttery soft. I'm really sensitive, so I'm very picky about what bases we use because I get itchy. So it's just this really soft blend, and that nylon gives it just a little bit of strength to it. So I really love it. What I love about the Skinny in particular, this is that Hemi-More Fit in Skinny, and I'll show you the Angelite is the Surrey silk that I held it together with. So you can see how they look very different, but then when you combine them together, you get this really pretty, almost like a robin's egg blue kind of blue. What's fantastic about this base in particular is it is 630 yards. So it's a light fingering, but our Surrey is a little bit heavier than like a typical mohair silk lace weight. So I found that holding together Posh Skinny with the Surrey makes a really lovely DK weight fabric. You could knit it up as a sport too, actually. That's one thing that about the fuzzy yarns that's really fun is because that fluffiness kind of fills in any space, you can really knit it up in a range of gauges and it'll still works nicely. But what's great about the Posh Skinny is it has 630 yards. So for this cute little top, I only used one skein of the Skinny and I used two skeins of the Surrey. So it was one strand of this, one strand of this. This is just has a lot more yardage. So I needed two of these. Okay, so I'll show you a little bit about the construction. So you start by knitting this part right here flat. And then when you get down to this spot right here, you pick up the stitches and knit this part over like this. You put these stitches down here are on holders while you pick up these. And then when you get to about here, you combine them and finish in the round. So it's a little bit more spicy of a knit than like a really simple raglan style sweater. But the way it drapes on your body is really flattering. So I really love that. And I usually am not a fan of picking up stitches, I'll be honest. And this one has a lot of picking up stitches because you pick up these stitches and then you pick up the neckline as well. And also the sleeves. So there's a lot of that going on. But the designer has you slip these stitches as you're knitting the flat part. So it actually, it's pretty easy to find where you're going to pick up those stitches later, if that makes sense. So yeah, I really loved that one. I'm already thinking about what my next one is going to be. That's how much I liked it. Let me check real quick in that chat and just see, does anybody have questions about the Karamelli pattern or what yarns I used or bases or anything to do with that one before I move on? Okay, I'll keep checking back. So don't worry about having me go. I don't even mind. All right. Okay, so let's see, which one do I want to do next? Okay, so I'll do the Lento. So speaking of doing a really simple raglan, this one is called the Lento. And This one is fantastic if you want kind of a instant gratification sweater because it's knit on size 10 needles. So it goes pretty quickly. Um, and it also, so this is our posh sock held together with Surrey. So even though it's, I would say sock and Surrey held together, you could knit it as a DK. This is knit more like a worsted or even like a heavy worsted with the needle size. So it gives it that like really like just soft drape that it has comes from that bigger needle size on there. And this one, let me see if I have the colors handy. This one is our um, flower agate. Let me grab it. Or yeah, flower agate in the Surrey. And I held it together. We sold out of this at our last show, so I just dyed more up, but I'm gonna see. So this is the manganese calcite colorway on skinny, but it was on posh sock for this sweater. So just I don't want to confuse you too much. Jackie, Lento is top down, and you even do the neckline like you don't have to pick up any stitches. You start with a neckline. The designer does ask for gosh, I'm just totally having a brain moment on what the name of the cast on is, but it's the one where you keep it on a pair of needles or you have live stitches still, so you use like scrap yarn. And anyway, if anybody remembers the name of it, type it in the chat. Provisional, that's it. Okay, perfect. You guys are so good. Yes, so the designer calls for a provisional cast on. I am just not a fan of that cast on. It's nothing against it. I just feel like it's a lot of work for what you're getting. So I just did a regular cast on, and then the reason they ask, I'll show you real quick. The reason they ask for the provisional is because this is a double layer here. So basically what they do is they have you knit that part and then I think even do like some kind of 3 needle bind up or something to connect it, right? But I just did a regular cast on and then just sewed it, like whip stitched it when I was done. So it was just a really, I mean, for me, it was a shortcut and just a cast on that I feel like there's definitely uses for it, but I felt like this was easier. So that's just me. There are some short rows, and the pattern walks you through German short rows, which are really pretty easy to do. Jackie, yes, the neckline has a smaller needle, and so does the ribbing here. I think it was maybe a 7 or an 8, but the body's on a 10. I did on a 9 because I always knit a little bit loose. So, oh, that's good to know. Stephen West has a way to do it without a provisional. I might have to look that up. I just did a regular one and whip stitched it, and it worked just fine. But yeah, I think it's always fun to see that there are different techniques to do those kinds of things. So I'll definitely be checking that out. Thank you for suggesting that. So the colors, you can see this is that Surrey in the flower agate. And you can see how this is just a little bit darker and richer than what's going on here. And that's because of holding it together with such a light color in the other yarn that it was held with in the posh sock. So I find, people ask me all the time about picking out like a fuzzy yarn to hold together with another yarn, because it is true that can be a little intimidating when you haven't done a lot of it, because it's hard to kind of predict what they're going to do. I always just tell people to think about like back to kindergarten when you were mixing paints. And if you thought about if I mixed a cream or a white with this, what would happen to it? It would just lighten it up, right? So the other thing that I really suggest is when you have leftovers of any project, that's a fun, like that's just a way that you can play with those a little bit and just try swatching out different kinds of color combinations. And then you'll start to discover rules that you like. Like some people really, I personally really love a main color that is kind of a light speckle with like a darker Surrey behind it. I love that always. And I know for me, like as long as it's that color combo, it's probably going to work. Some people really like a lighter Surrey with a darker color. So that's what's hard about it is I do think it's kind of a very subjective idea of what works and what doesn't. But as you kind of play with kind of general rules, you might start to kind of find patterns that work that are going to make it a lot easier for you to pick those colors. The other thing I do too is I just, look at different versions of a pattern on Ravelry, see what other people did, and that gives me an idea of what I want to do with colors on that same thing. Okay, let me put in a link for this. So again, it's called the Lento. And I did a size 2, which is a 42 and like 3/4, 42.75-inch bust. And that took, let's see, the pattern called for 3 skeins of Surrey. It only took 2 for me. And it took 2 skeins of that manganese calcite on Posh Sock as well. So there is the link for that one. Okay. Right. Does anybody have questions about Lento before I move on to another one? Okay. I think what I'll do is I'll talk about samples. And then I do have a sample that is left over from our last collection that was just too good to not share with you guys. So I'm going to keep those colorways open just because it got done a little bit later and I don't want you to miss it. So I'll show you that. And then I might talk a little bit about colors and color combinations, or maybe what to do with minis, because we do have a mini skein set for this one that I love. Okay, so Karamelli Lento. Okay, the next one I want to show you is called the Wispy Shawl. And it is just a very simple, here, I'll take it off actually, because it might be easier to see. Ooh. It's just this really sweet shawl that uses a Surrey, and it's a Locatelli design. And she called for, I think her thought process was that it would be really easy because it has just a tiny bit of this, of a yarn that's not a fuzzy yarn. And I think her idea was it would be really cute with, a way to use scraps. I personally just think it looks so cute with the same colorway as the Surrey. So what I'm doing, and these aren't listed up yet, but we'll go up real quick, is some sets where I'm just including the coordinating mini in with the 2 skeins of Surrey. So if you buy the 2 skeins of Surrey for this shawl, you'll get a mini along with it. So I mean, really, you could do that for any colorway. In fact, I will put them up, but if I see anybody buy 2 skeins of Surrey in the same colorway, I'll just throw in the mini for anybody from who's using that discount code. I'll know that you were on this call, or at least maybe I know what's going on. And I'll do that. I'll add the listing to the shop as well. But I just, in case you want to make this super cute shawl, I want to make sure you get that coordinating mini. So if I see 2 skeins of Surrey sold, I'll throw in a mini that matches it too, because it's kind of a fun. I just think it only needs a little bit. You don't need to go buy a whole skein of fingering weight for it. But it's just this sweet little shawl, and I think it's kind of perfect for spring and transitional weather. So I'm going to put that link in here. And now used in hers, she used a mohair silk, and it's a little bit lighter. So you'll notice that in this one, the fabric is a little bit more opaque. But that's because, like I said, our Surrey is a little bit heavier. So you could go up a needle size if you wanted to. I think it did not use a full 2 skein. So I do think you could go up a needle size and be okay. It probably used more like 1.5 skeins. So you should be safe for that if you want more of a wispy, Oh, hey, Kate. So the discount code is ROCKS, ROCKS, all caps, and that's 15% off. Okay. So thank you. Thanks, Kate. Any questions about the Lento? I want to make sure that I'm getting them as they come in. Okay, I'll keep moving on. But just like I said, always in the chat or holler, I'm happy to answer questions. Okay, let's see. This one is so cute. So this is called the Not Again Tee. And it's such a cute pattern that man, when it's flat, it does not look nearly as cute as it looks on a body. So I was like, I have to have a mannequin for this one because it just looks so much better. But it's actually knit this way. So you'll notice the stitches go this way. And it has this really pretty herringbone stripe through it. That's really just the texture on it's really gorgeous. And the pattern, like the original pattern that the designer did, was a pretty speckly colorway. So I think even if you wanted to do one of the more variegated, more speckled colorways, I think it would look really lovely in this design. Because it's done in a different, because of that and because of all the little stripes of texture, it kind of it'll break that up without it competing too much because it's a really subtle texture, so it's not too much. And this is our citrine colorway on Posh Sock. And let me put a link to this one. And I had a sample knitter do this one for me. It's a size 2, which is a 38-inch bust. And it took 2 skeins. One thing I will say, because it is knit this way, because it's, isn't it like that? You do have to really have an idea of what length you want before you cast on, right? Most sweaters, if they're knit top down, it's really easy to adjust that length. Like the one I'm wearing right now, it's super cute. And I, cropped it a little bit because I find that I'm short. So it's more flattering on me to have a cropped sweater. But so it's easy to adjust, right? But that one, because you cast on stitches for the length, you've got to kind of have that figured out before you do your cast on. Okay. So those are my samples that are Rockhound collection ones. And then I'm going to show you a couple of other things. So one that we did not have in time to show at the last sample show is this really cute one called Yokelore. And so this is in the Isles collection colorways. And you'll see like this is Pete and Kerrang and Naughty Sheep and Glow and Smoked Salmon for the main color. It's just such a pretty, it's a yoke, right? And you've got increases that kind of go in different sections. So it's this pretty yoked colorwork sweater. What I love about it is in every size, I think it goes up to a size 58-inch bust, maybe 60. But in every size, you only need, because you are just doing this colorwork along the yoke right at the top, you only need a half skein for each of these colors. So one thing that I did is we do these halvesy sets, right? So I put together a halvesy set from the Isles collection colorways that these are all the ones that are used. We always do them in 6, so you only really need 4 for the color work, but I put 1 extra of the main color. That way, you'll have a little extra yardage if you need it. And then this is just Croft Garden. I just love it with these other colors. I thought it would be fun. So you can mix them up and kind of do whatever colors you want to do. But these aren't listed yet because these are from a show we just did. So that's another one of those things that's on my list of things that right after this call, I will put these guys up. And this is the Isles collection halvesies. And I will also have half-size skeins up for the Rockhound collection. So if you want to make a springier version of it, you could too. The pattern, I'm going to put the link in right now. And the pattern has long sleeves. So we did it with short sleeves and a little cropped. So because of that, you only need a halvesy set and like 1 skein of the main color for the 42-inch bust. So you can get, a whole cute little tee out of not as much yarn. But if you want to do longer sleeves or less cropped or any, depending on size, all of those things, the number of skeins for your main color is going to change. The half size skeins will be good for the color work, no matter what color, no matter what sleeve length, no matter what body length. It's really just that main color that's going to change in how many skeins you need. Okay. let's see. So like I said, I'll be putting those up. The main color is smoked salmon. So I will be, after this call, the other thing I'm going in is taking down all of the Isles collection pre-orders because we're kind of moving on. But what I will do is leave up smoked salmon, and I'll put up those half-size skeins. I only have 3. That's all I have left. So I'm sorry, but I'm going to put them on right after this call, and then we're done. Okay. Another thing I wanted to show you, just since we're speaking of the Isles collection, and it's been one of the most popular samples at all the shows I've done this past year, is this really gorgeous lamina cowl, lamina, because people ask me all the time what to do with those mega mini sets. So this one used one of the mega mini sets for the Isles collection, which I do still have some of those in stock and they're on sale. And then one full-size skein, and I did the Naughty Sheep, which I'll leave that one up too. That one's been, I've had a lot of people like scrambling to get in pre-orders for a Naughty Sheep because they want to have that before it's gone. So I'll leave that one up a little bit longer. In fact, I'm going to make a note to myself right now to make sure I don't pull that down. So Naughty Sheep is going to stay up, and smoked salmon. And then I'm also going to put those halvesies on too, so that you can make the Yokelore if you want to do that. I also think, like I said, I think it would be super cute in the Rockhound colors as well. So I have, and I've split those ones up into 2 sets. One that's very color work focused, and I'll even show it to you. Let me grab it. Okay, I have one set that's more color work focused, right? So you've got a good blend of dark and light in there. And then I did one set that's more of a fade. So it kind of fades from the strawberry quartz into that chrysocolla color. That's that really pretty green, turquoise green color. So these will be going up as after the call as well. Kate, I was telling everybody else, I was out yesterday with a migraine, so I'm like still adding things in. Okay, let's see. So I want to see. Okay, Jackie had a question about, so for our last Lit Society, we had a Posh DK and a Surrey set. I had an idea of what we were going to do with that, and I can't remember what it was. Jackie, I'm going to email you because I have some ideas. There was like a really cute tee that used like a Surrey and then like a top with it. So I thought that might be fun for that one. And I think there was a shawl as well. I'll look, and it might be on the Lit Society tab where it showed all the information for our Zoom call. You'll see like a picture of the book in there too. I think I put ideas for patterns. So I'll go look at it too. But if you want to look there, that would be a good place to look. I'm trying to get better at doing that because I know it's nice to have ideas of what you're going to make with your box. Let's see. Oh, Serena, the Sophie shawl would be really pretty. Yes, it was not that, but that would be gorgeous. I love that idea. I just helped somebody pick out colors for that at a show, and I had kind of seen it, but I had never really looked at the pattern like in detail to pick yarns, and I think those would be perfect for that. Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, all right, so the other thing I'm going to put up are Rockhound halvesies. Let me write that down too. I've got a to-do list. Okay. So let's see. I just want to check on time. Okay, I've got lots. So the other thing I wanted to show with you guys are a few, you probably have seen some of these before if you've been following me for a while, but it is the number one question I get is what can I make with the mini skein sets? So I'm going to show a few different patterns that you could do with those. And let me see if I've got links for those actually. I should. Let's see, because these ones aren't in this particular collection. I've got to scroll down a little bit to find them, but okay, here's that Lamina or lamina. I do not know which is accurate, but that's that really pretty wrap with the lace. Amba O'Brien is the designer on that. And I send people to her all the time when they want to know what to do with minis, because she is kind of the queen of minis and scrappy and like using your advents and things like that. She does so many great patterns for those. Um, and I've really enjoyed everything I've made that has been one of her designs. So I think she's one that's kind of the top of my list to recommend. Um, the other thing I did recently that I'm loving is this was from a like a Halloween countdown, but it's basically just a giant granny square. Where I started in the middle with one color, did a few rounds, dropped it, picked up another round. Um, and when you do it that way, where you kind of do a couple rounds around here, around there, it just kind of does that really pretty watercolory blend. The fact that it's really variegated helps with that too. For this particular, I mean, there is no pattern. It's just a granny square. But I think Rockhound would look great in that. But I also think we have listed, I don't have any near me, otherwise I'd hold it up. But we also have listed our Fiber Gallery retrospective. So it's like all the Fiber Gallery colors, club colors from last year, all in one set. And that would be fantastic in this. I think what makes it work so well is that they are very speckled, and so you get a lot of really a lot of speckles going on, and that's what helps it kind of get that dappley look, because you're not going to get any like real strong straight lines. I don't know if that makes sense, but so that's one that I recommend to people. Another one that's a fun one for minis is called the Habitation Throw, and this one is done corner to corner. So it's knit on the bias. This is a knit one, knit on the bias. And for this one I did, so each stripe is a whole mini skein, right? So that's why they're kind of thicker as you get to the edges, because you have less that you're going across. Anyway, but that is a fun one too. Let me see if I actually have a link for that. If I don't, it's called the Habitation Throw, and it's a Helen Stewart design. Let's see. Well, I do have it. Okay. Okay. And for the Yokelore, it's a DK weight. So I put up behind me. I did. So one thing that's nice is the color work parts only need about half a skein, even in the largest sizes. So since we do those half skein sets, those DK halvesies, they are 50 grams each. So it's about a half a skein of DK weight yarn. It's 120 yards. So that would be great. Those sets would be great for that. Or if you just have like leftovers of different colors, you really only need about half a skein. So that's for the Yokelore. Awesome. Okay. Let's see. Okay, just want to make sure I'm not missing any. Oh, Martha suggested the Bennett sisters shawl for the last Lit Society box, but that would work better with the sock, I will say, not with the D. I mean, you could probably make it work with DK. It would just, it's the kind of pattern where you could just go up a needle size, because you just increase till you get to what you feel is the middle, and then you start decreasing. So you could definitely do it with the DK if you wanted to, I think. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so those are kind of the minis that I wanted to show you. And then I think the other thing that I might just chat about really quick is maybe some of the each of the different colorways. And then actually, let me talk about bases first, because in this collection drop, so you've got, like I said, we've got Posh Skinny, Posh Sock, Posh DK, and then Surrey. So I'm going to talk about each of those bases just a little bit, and kind of what I would use them for, where I think they really shine. And then if you have questions about those, let me know. So like I said, the Poshes, those all are that 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon. So I recommend those all the time for if you're like me and you have really sensitive skin. They're so good up against the skin. If you have people you like to knit for, and they're knit worthy enough that you want to make them something, but you're a little nervous about how they're going to care for it, they can be good for that too. They're kind of good yarns for non-knitters because they got that superwash, which protects it a little bit. I still think that I would still personally hand wash a hand knit just to make sure, nothing happens to it from the agitation of a machine. But you don't have to worry about it felting and shrinking. So I just worry about like my ends coming out or things like that. So it's great for gift knitting because non-knitters tend to be um, not always know how to care for things, but also way more sensitive to wool than I think knitters get. Like I think we start to kind of feel like even the crunchiest of wools don't bother us as much. I'm like I said, I'm kind of a baby, so the crunchy ones still bother me, but they're good for non-knitters who are not as used to those wools. Um, so like I said, the thing that's great about this skinny is that it has that amazing yardage. It's 630 yards in a skein. That's because it's a light fingering. So it's actually, these skeins weigh the same as our Posh sock and as our Posh DK. It's just that it's spun lighter, so it has a lot more length, right? Um, like I said, I combined it in this one with Surrey in Angelite, and it makes, I think you could use that to knit sport weight all the way up through DK. Both of those would work fine with that combination of Surrey and skinny together. I also have found for me, my preference when I'm knitting something DK that I want to feel really light and breezy, like this is a DK weight sweater, right? But it has, I mean, it has some weight to it because of that DK weight yarn, even though it's knitted a lighter gauge and where it has kind of a nice drape. Um, it just feels a little heavier. Whereas if I take a skinny and I hold it double, there's something about holding two strands together that makes a fabric that just feels a little bit lighter to me. And I find for me that our skinny held double makes a DK really nicely. So whenever I'm doing like spring tees, like something that I want to be really light to wear in the spring, and it's a DK weight pattern, I just hold skinny double and it works really well. The other thing that I love about Posh Skinny is that even though it's the same blend as DK and as sock, I think because it's spun lighter, it feels softer to me, even softer than the other ones do. So my experience has been that at live shows where people can pick it up and touch it and think about what they want to make with it, Skinny is one of our better sellers because I think it's, especially when you get that yardage for the same price, it's just a good deal. And it works in a lot of different ways. So you have to know a little bit about how you can use it. So that's why I wanted to point that out because I feel like it's one of our more underrated bases when it comes to online sales, probably because you can't touch it, right? So so that's just something to think about for when you're looking at what you want to order. Let's see. Posh sock, that is kind of our, I would say, #1 bestseller. It's that fingering weight yarn and it's nice and soft. And it takes color really beautifully, just like the other Posh bases do too. So that one, I would absolutely use it for socks because it's got that nylon in it. It makes it a little stronger, even though it has the cashmere. But I also use it for sweaters and shawls and things like that too. If you wanted to knit, going back to the skinny, if you wanted to knit skinny by itself without holding it with anything else, it's going to knit up. It's technically a light fingering, but you could use it even in like a heavy lace weight scenario. So if you had a shawl that you want something that's a little heavier than lace weight, skinny would work really well for that. Oh, Melissa. Okay, so Melissa has a question about citrine and fearless. So that's a really good question. They're very similar. I'll put it that way. I used the same dye for both, so they're going to be similar. Citrine just leans a little more. It's interesting. On Surrey, you get a lot of peach and a lot of green coming through. On the other bases, I would say it leans more peach. So it's going to be really similar to Fearless. Fearless had a couple other golds in there, but citrine is really close. So I hope that helps. Okay. Let's see. Where was I? Oh, and then so for Posh DK, that's my go-to for sweaters. Like it just makes a good it's just a great sweater yarn. Again, it is like the other ones where it can be really, your Fearless was stolen. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry to hear that, Melissa. You're going to have to tell me that story because that sounds um like you don't hear about yarn getting stolen a lot. So I'd really love to know what was going on. Actually, I just saw Trisha, no pressure, but I see that you're here, and Trisha is the one who knit the Not Again tee. If you feel like sharing anything about it, because you're the one who made it, like, so I think you have a better feel on the construction. Just think about it. If you feel like doing that, let me know, and I'll let you pop on and chat about it for a bit. But no pressure either. You might be working. Okay, I see you.
I'm not working. I'm just knitting. You're knitting. Yeah, I'm happy to share about the Not Again tee. It was very unique construction that it's the Judy's Magic cast on that you start with, like you would do toe up socks. I've never knitted anything like that where you start on the side and then you do the armhole. So it looks like a, I don't know, like a long 2 rows stuck together with a loop at the top. It's really interesting working on that construction. But it was really fun. Once I got going into it, it went really quickly. I think I'm working multiple jobs and I was able to get it done in like 2 weeks. So it was a quick project, really fun. I just pulled out my little mini skein of Fearless too, and I was looking at how the colors compare. And you're right, they're very similar. I wouldn't have thought that, but yeah, it's really pretty. So I don't know if you have any specific questions.
No, that's super helpful because I read through the pattern obviously and sent it to you, but it's still, not the same as making it yourself. Yeah. So that's really helpful to know. Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I think that little herringbone stitch, it turned out really cool. It was a little tedious. So some of those sections where you're doing that all the way up the front and all the way down the back, those were long rows, but otherwise it would fly by. So it was great. It was really fun.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll also tell you just one little note and then I'll stop. This sweater is knit in Posh DK and it got run through the washing machine and the dryer and it's still in great shape. So
awesome.
Well, so anyway.
Perfect. Thank you, Trisha. That's awesome. Yeah, I have lots of kids in my life and occasionally will knit something for a baby, and I will use Posh Sock a lot because it kind of does a lot. It's a good weight for baby knits. And I like that I don't have to worry too much about, because I know being a new parent with a baby who's keeping you up all night, you don't really want to be precious about your laundry. So it's a good one for those kinds of things too. Okay. I want to talk a tiny bit about Surrey. Like I was telling you, so here's one of the sets we put together that have 2 skeins of Surrey and a mini skein that coordinates. So that's what you would get if you are ordering for that Wispy shawl. And like I said, I'll put up kits, but if you do 2 of the same color, I'll just assume you want a mini to go with it. The Surrey has about it's 328 yards in a skein. And like I said, it's a little heavier than like a mohair silk. So that's just something to keep in mind as you're combining things. Like for the Lento, it was written for an alpaca and a sock weight held together. So that's why you can knit it on those size 10 needles and it still works really nicely. But my experience knitting with it, because I get asked this question all the time from people who have knit with mohair and had a bad experience. So I'll tell you a couple things about that. I love a fuzzy sweater. Obviously, I've got one there. Lots of the samples I've done in the past have been fuzzy ones, just because I love the texture and it's really fun. But when I started knitting sweaters that were just the mohair, it was just too itchy for me. Like if I held it together with one of our Posh bases, I was like, okay, I could probably make this work. But I did find that at the end of the day of wearing it, I was like excited to take it off of my body, right? Because it just, is kind of in the background bothering you. I found with Surrey that is not an issue for me. So like I said, I have really sensitive skin. And And so my plan when I brought Surrey on as a base was to kind of continue to do both, but I am moving away from mohair and just fully into Surrey because it's just such a pleasure to wear for me. I just don't see myself knitting. Now that I've started knitting with this, I just don't see myself going back to mohair. Um, the other thing that I get asked all the time is about when you're ripping back, and mohair can be a real pain to rip back. For the Surrey, it's definitely not as easy as ripping back like, 100% wool or the posh, but it's much easier than mohair. That's been my experience. So just something to know about that base as you're thinking if that's something that would work for you. Um, the other thing I tell people too, if you ever order yarn from me and you get it and you're like, whoa, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Like you don't like how it feels or you don't like how the color turned out or anything like that, please reach out and let me know because I will bend over backwards to make it right for you. Okay. I know it is really hard to buy yarn over the internet. It's such a tactile experience. So I recognize that when you order from me, it's kind of there's a lot of trust that's happening there, and I want to honor that. So usually like if it's still in the same, if you haven't like wound it up and broken into it, then you can return it for full price and you're good, or we can exchange it for something else that works for you. Even if you've wound it and you're finding that there's something about it you don't like, still reach out to me and we'll see what we can do, because that's really important to me to make sure that you guys are happy. Like I don't even just want you to be happy, I want you to be thrilled, because it's just a hobby where you spend too much time making a fabric stitch by stitch by stitch to not like the yarn you're working with. Okay. All right. If I don't have any other questions, I'm going to maybe talk about colors individually. But feel free to interrupt me because now I'm just making sure that you guys all get a chance to hear about these colors. But I'd much rather answer questions if that's something that you have. And it doesn't even have to be about the Rockhound collection. So don't feel like you're interrupting me. Okay. All right, so here are the minis, which, like I said, will be up as soon as we get off this call. So Hemimorphite, I'll show you first, is just this kind of really pretty minty green with a really subtle gray speckle to it. And I try really hard to make sure colors in the pictures online are representative. But like I said, if you ever get it and you're like, this is not the color I thought, please let me know. Okay. And I don't know how our monitors are going to do. So hopefully they will show up. This one is Whitby Jet. This is a fun stone because it is like fossilized charcoal. So I did a really charcoaly gray. And the Victorians used to use it for mourning jewelry because you had to be wearing black. So when Queen Victoria made her mourning jewelry out of it, it got really popular. And that was one of the towns we visited when we were on our little Scotland trip. We also ducked down into the UK for a bit and saw Whitby. So that was kind of fun to include that one. This one is one of my favorites of the collection. And I thought it's just cream. It's kind of boring. How is this my favorite? But I'll tell you, let me see if I have it is just a really subtle pink. So it's mostly cream with just a hint of pink in it. So like the one I'm wearing right now has that as a stripe. And so because it has just that really subtle pink, it plays really well with the other pinks and purples. I have it near me. In Surrey is my favorite on this one because it just is. Actually, let me grab it. I got it right over here. I think it looks like a pearl. Like it just has this really pretty, gentle pink shine to it. Anyway, I love it. Okay, so that is Mangano calcite. And then the other one I want to show you that is also one of my favorites is that flower agate. So it is a kind of a gray lavender base with just a really soft green and purple over it. If you have any Kirang from the from the Isles collection left. It makes a really fun friend to the flower agate. I've been like thinking about casting on a pressed flowers shawl with those two colors together because I think they'd really work nicely together. Here, actually, I'm gonna grab. Here's just like a half size skein of it so you can see them, just those two together. I don't know. I just love it. I think they complement each other really nicely. And because I will say when I'm doing the next season's collection, I do try to kind of think about, will these new colors go with the last ones I did? They're not all going to work together perfectly, but I do try to make it so that a few of them will kind of carry on nicely. Okay, so the next one I'm going to show you is Strawberry Quartz. And it's just like a really pretty deep rose pink. And this one is over dyed with a little bit of gray. It's actually the same gray that's in Whitby Jet. So they work really nicely together. But also it means that this is kind of a pink that leans a little bit purple. So just so that you know about that. Angelite is this really soft gray blue. It's almost kind of a little bit denim-y, like a light wash denim. And that's the one that I held together with the hemimorphic in the Surrey on the Karamelli sweater over here. Kate, this sweater and this sweater both are the same pattern. It's called the Karamelli. It's just this one I did in DK weight yarn and stripes, and this one I did in Surrey and skinny held together to make that more of a solid. And then Amethyst is this really pretty purple. And this one, a lot of times when I do semi-solids, they get a couple layers. So this one has that kind of blue, traditional blue purple. And then it's over dyed with more of like a plummy gray purple. So it will have a little bit of kind of a really soft flow of colors. And then Citrine that we talked about, which is very close to Fearless. You know what's funny? I had totally forgotten that. I'm glad somebody else brought it up. I forgot I ever dyed that colorway, you guys. That's how my brain works. As soon as I stop dyeing one, I kind of like file it away and don't think about it again. So this one is Phosphociderate, and it is just this really soft purple, and it has speckles that are the same as Citrine. So these two would play really pretty together. You could even like fade it with these three, I think would be really pretty. So that's those ones. And then this is the Moss Agate. And this one is a silvery gray base with those mossy green speckles over the top. That one. And then this one's called Chrysocolla. And this was one of our best sellers at our spring show. I think it's just because it's such a fun turquoise green and that's really rich. And this one has just kind of almost like bronzy speckles in it. The one that I held up with Citrine, Serena, that one is called Phosphociderate. Oh, and that was that wispy shawl that I showed. That was knit in this colorway, Phosphociderate. Which again, I'm not a geologist, so I might be making geologists crazy by the way I'm pronouncing these. This is Phosphociderate on Surrey. And that's what that wispy shawl sample was knit out of. Let's see. And then the last one I have is Morganite. Now this one has, if you look closely, it has the same pink that's in Manganese Calcite, and it has the same blue that's in Angelite, and it has the same kind of minty aqua color that is in Hemimorphic. So this one will play well with a lot of these other colors. Sorry, my fingers are in the way. Do you guys, are there any other combinations that you guys want to see? Because I'd be happy to show some if there's any specific ones that you want to see like up next to each other. Carol, the short sleeve sweater, the Yokelore one, this one. This one, I am going to put up the minis, the half size skeins, and then you would just buy as many of the full size skeins as you need. If you wanted to make it exactly like this, I think it's like a 42-inch bust, then you would need one of the half size skein packs and one of the full-size skeins of smoked salmon. And I'm going to have, these are going to come up right after our call. And then the smoked salmon is up as a pre-order as well, which I do have a few in stock. I will also say I have all of these yarns up as a pre-order, but because I just had spring shows, I dyed up a lot of extra yarn. So many of you, that would be the only reason to rush, right? If you are one of the first few who order that colorway and that base, you'll probably get it next week. I just can't promise that. So yeah, so here is flower agate and here is amethyst together, which I really love. I think they're very pretty together. I actually think it's funny because I really like phosphocitrate and amethyst together, but I think it works together really nicely with the strawberry quartz too. There's just something about that gray overwash that makes it a little bit more purple that I like. So yeah, there's those two together. And you can even put, that's the moss agate that has a lot of the same greens in it too, would be pretty.
Hey, do you have the, sorry, I've forgotten the names of them already, but the purple you were just holding, I think it's amethyst.
Amethyst.
And the turquoise one with the bronze speckles.
Yeah.
Do you have those at hand in Surrey as well?
Let me look. So in Surrey, this one comes out a lot more green. So I will tell you that.
Okay.
Let me grab them for you. Surrey, I don't think is wound up yet, but I do have it almost ready. This is the Surrey in that chrysocolla color.
It's beautiful.
I know. I really love it too. I really love it too.
Wow.
And then let me see. I think I have some amethyst right here too, actually.
Oh, just as beautiful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody else have ones that they want to see? Oh, that's wonderful, Carol. Thank you, Melissa. I love it. Melissa just gave me her email so I could ask her about her stolen yarn debacle. I am actually really interested to hear that. So just for those of you who need to go, it is time, but I wanted to do a giveaway really quick. So if you on either Facebook or Instagram, I'm going to do just a post about this collection that has all the minis. It'll be a picture of the minis. If you comment anything about what your favorite colorway was from the collection, we'll do a drawing, and I'll pick a person from Facebook and a person from Instagram, and we'll do like a $30 gift certificate to the shop. So so watch for that. It'll be up in just a couple minutes. Oh, Serena knows the story. I love it. Okay. Oh man, I'm sad. All right. Well, thank you so much for spending your lunch hour with me. If you guys have other questions beyond what we've talked about today, I am always available via Instagram messages or email. I will warn you, I will have days where I'm just dyeing yarn and I don't look at my computer. So if you don't hear from me for a couple days, I will try my best to get to you. And don't ever feel bad about being like, Kate, hey, I emailed you 2 days ago. I won't ever be offended by that, because that's just how I'm just not always at a computer. And so I know that I'm going to sometimes not see things right away. So don't ever feel bad about that. Nancy, yes, I'm totally interested and would love to be there. I'm planning on emailing you. I just haven't had a chance to do that yet. So, so I will definitely reach out to you. Awesome. All right, you guys, thank you so much for coming. It was good to see all of you. And don't forget that discount code is ROCKS. So I want to make sure you get that 15% off. All right. I will see you guys again another time. I will try to do more of these sample shows because they're actually really fun to be able to share them with you. Thanks so much, you guys. Have a good weekend. Thanks, Jackie. Thanks, Nancy. Bye, Martha. Bye, Serena.